Which that actually was something I've noticed recently watching it too. I think everyone feels that way because when there's, I guess, is it a live audience? That's true.
It is.
Every time Kramer comes in the door at Jerry's apartment, you like, not every time, sometimes it's a huge cheer.
Well,
most times it is. Not every time.
I noticed that as well. And what I've observed based on the episodes we saw is that like seasons 3 and 4 is like a Beatles like phenomenon. Like the people that are cheering when like the different characters come on, it's not just like, hey, they're here. It's like, yes, they're here. This is amazing.
Yeah, oh my God,
like,
I've been waiting my whole life for this.
Yeah, like you catch the cultural phenomenon of Seinfeld, like because the first couple of seasons, the first season they didn't even know if it was going to be still on, and they found their water level, and then like it became a phenomenon, and then like towards the later ones, it's not that it wasn't a phenomenon, it was more just like, well, this is like you have to perform at this level every episode, and so like there wasn't that same level of like Beatlemania, I think.
Right.
I really don't think I truly understood the level of popularity that the show had when I was watching it as a kid.
Yeah, me neither.
I was like watching that Michael Jordan documentary.
Like, I was going to bring that up at some point.
And there's like a scene where Jerry comes into the locker room and just says, "What's up?" to Michael, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
He's up there. Jerry's up there with Michael.
Totally.
Like, all right.
Totally. I mean,
I guess.
Yeah,
That's
him.
so crazy.
Yeah.
I think we before we started the actual walking part of our project, we did like 4 or 5 podcast episodes, and one of the weeks we talked about the Jordan documentary because, we were sitting around, we couldn't walk yet, we watched the whole thing, and I feel like him, Jerry Seinfeld, Michael Jordan, and Bill Clinton are like the 3 of the most prominent shapers of American culture in the 90s.
90s?
Yeah.
Huh.
And like honestly I have like really deep complaints about each of like how they decided to like live their lives. Like in that like I think that we're still contending with some issues of like kind of indifference to like the rest of the world around us because of their behavior. I mean, Clinton's a different thing because it's a political thing, but like Jordan and
still a pop culture icon though.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, when you talk about like the crime bill that they passed and like the super predator thing, where like they wanted to be, neoliberal. They basically like, we're going to take some positions of the Republicans in order to show strength so that we can have votes. But it became problematic way down the line because it created this awful, imprisonment system. With Jordan, we had talked about it. It was really troubling to me, especially because we're doing all this clothing stuff, right? Where like we're trying to identify where the clothes come from and whatnot. And like he just signed up for Nike and was like, let's ride this as hard as we can. And like I'm not going to give a second thought about where these clothes are coming from or anything like that. We're just going to make a shit ton of money based on my branding, And like he really felt like, that in the Jordan documentary, there was a political race where people were pressuring him to like come down on one side. Yeah. It was like a Senate race in North Carolina. Right, and he was he said, Republicans buy my shoes too, and he thought it was his place, or he thought it was not his place to insert himself into those types of conversations.
Must be tough being that popular and picking a side.
Totally.
Or having an opinion for that matter.
I think
especially if you get that popular because like everyone likes you and because you are kind of like uninvolved. It must
Like I don't want to let anyone down.
Yeah, or like I don't want anyone to like start fighting me or start like saying bad things about me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in a similar way, I feel the same way about Jerry. I mean, a show about nothing, right? Like you spend 9 years making a show about nothing. But like really, it's not a show about nothing. Like it has to connote some things ultimately. Like it is seeping into the culture in some meaningful way. And, I agree 100% with what you say. It's like it must be difficult to come down on a side. But when you've accumulated that much level of like pop culture power and influence, like it feels important to me to like at least make it clear that you're on some type of good side, or like just pick something where I can feel like you're using all of this attention that's being given in a way that influences the world positively, rather than totally being like, I abstain because it's not my responsibility to do this. And it's like, but you have all this power, you know, like just saying I am not, you know, it's not my job. I don't feel like that's sufficient enough for me, you know.
It's been quite interesting tracking other celebrities and figures around the world over the past 4 years too, because there were a lot of people that wouldn't say shit like during these past 4 years.
Totally, yeah.
Finally,
Some
people
true.
are eventually. I mean, some took longer than others, but people are finally starting to say stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, I don't know if it's like that concept in general. I don't know if it's that I'm getting older. I hate that, like, I hate using that, but whatever. I don't know if it's that I'm like getting older and wiser or whatever, and like more comfortable speaking about things myself, or if it's our culture changing or what. Like, I do think there's something that like you could maybe get away with maybe 10 or 15 years ago being like, I don't want to get involved. And now, like, I think we do all see that that's pretty lame to, like, be a public figure and not get involved.
Also, I don't think it was even really, like, that cool to be, like, active, like, even 4 years ago. Like, you know?
Yeah.
Or, like, pre
Pre-Trump
2016
and then
election.
Obama, definitely.
I just think the past 4 years, it's, like, really cool to be.
Yeah.
I think it's cyclical, you know, like so kind of this larger theory. I'll just you'll keep trashing on Jerry until I can praise him again at some point. But like, you know, I think about like the 60s, right? Which was like, that was a time there was a lot of people that were politically active, at least, you know, romantically. I wasn't there, but that's how I understand it, that there were a lot of people that were politically engaged. There's also this concept of free love for the first time, you know, where like we're going to get rid of like the sexual mores problems, like, you know, we're not going to be beholden to like religious ideas of what sexuality is. We're going to embrace sexuality and treat it as like a beautiful thing. And then that whole thing got soundly defeated by Richard Nixon, and then like the 70s was kind of like drugs and like we're just gonna do sex, but we're not gonna like have any like necessarily like, you know, like free love, like positive feelings associated with it. And I think like when I look at the episode like Seinfeld, and I'm not sure that this existed before in a sitcom or in like any type of media, but like every week they have different romantic partners. Every single week, you know? And like, I honestly, like, I thought about it today, like, that seems totally normal to me. When you talk about like, they create this universe that feels really real, but it's also unreal, like, because it's such a tight logic to each episode, I don't question the fact that he probably had like 200 different romantic partners, and George, who at best is an average looking guy and at worst is a like miserable human being, has been with like 150 different people. And you know, and Kramer and Elaine, they're all with different people, and like we don't like stop to think like, or like my parents, not that they did a bad job, like they didn't stop and talk to me, or you know, none of the other parents stopped and been like, you know, this isn't real.
No.
Like, you know,
not everybody dates somebody every week.
Right. But I kind of think like that informed us growing up, where it's like, oh yeah, you just have as many partners as you know, want, and like it's totally normal. And like not only is it normal, like it is I think acceptable to live your life that way potentially, but like it's almost like unacceptable if you can't reach that threshold of like, I'm going to have as many partners as possible while I am not married in a relationship. It is normal for me to like have a different relationship, and then like get out of that relationship, like get into a relationship, get out of a
unscathed.
relationship. You know, like there's
And
just
like for no, like, I mean, and that's like part of why the show is so funny is because like, yeah, Elaine broke up with someone because he didn't put an exclamation point. And like every time they break up with like, it's like, well, her laugh was crazy or her like, what her face changed. I mean, the two-faced
Also
one
shallow.
is like,
Yeah.
all so shallow and like, yeah, not always just like physical shallow, but like so superficial. And like, that's why it's so funny because it's so absurd. But I guess I haven't really thought about that, but you're kind of onto something. Like, it definitely doesn't encourage people to like work through like differences with each other or like figure out common ground or like work on a relationship. Like, oh, I like this person except for this one thing. I'm sure we can talk about it. Like, it teaches like blow up, freak out, go tell your friends how crazy they were, and like laugh about it. And the only time it's like resolved is at the very end of the show when they're all like when you find out that they're bad people.
Yeah, at the very end.
right. Yeah, and like I
That
mean,
is great.
I think the counterpoint that maybe he would make, or the show creators would make, is that like it's all like the platonic ideal of comedy, right? Which is to say, like, we just strip out all the emotion, all the like surrounding context of what this could mean, because we're just trying to make a show about like jokes, jokes, and like not worry about like the fact that there hundreds of people are getting dumped over reasons that are completely trivial. These people are complete infants when it comes to maintaining relationships, and like. And because they probably presume like, well, nobody would assume life is that way. But like, I mean, they are probably some of the most meaningful adult role models I had growing up, which sounds perverse, but like, if you watch it an hour a day after The Simpsons for like 5 years, and then you watch it, I mean, you're 20 years, like people just watching this all the time, like it goes in somewhere,
It sticks with you.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It definitely shaped my humor.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well,
What I
that's
like to
what
look out for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How I perform.
Yeah.